wear down Russian forces?
So it's a good question. I do want to say Steve Blank has spoken at my seminar series probably around 30 times. And when I need a Russian expert to tell Congress what the threat is, that's who I go to. He is the best. He also speaks Russian, and it's wonderful to hear him. And his colleague Mark Schneider, who I should put a plug in, knows where all the weapons are and what Russia's doing. Steve knows what they're going to do with the weapons. Now, your question goes to the guts of what we're facing in NATO. As you notice, the United States and other NATO countries have said, we don't want to give Ukraine too much weaponry, because that will upset Putin. Well, Putin's already upset. Look what he's done to Ukraine. Bombed hospitals, bombed schools, kidnapped children, raped women left and right. It's not an issue getting upset. So if you're not going to win the war, here's the problem. We just went through 20 years of war in Afghanistan and Iraq, albeit it was eventually low grade, but who runs Iraq now? Iran, a lot of it. Who runs Afghanistan? The Taliban. So the American people are going to say, wait a minute, you just sold us the same deal. The first takedown of Saddam was brilliant. The takedown of the Taliban and Al-Qaeda was brilliant. You've seen the Horse Warriors movie. Okay, that was the military's job. The next job was the politicians to figure out, okay, then what? You can't take Afghanistan and turn it into Rhode Island. Yet we were going to build democracy. Sorry, you can't do it. So are you going to do the same thing with Ukraine? Because every week the war goes on, Russia's not getting blown away. Cities in Russia are not getting bombed. Ukraine, you're losing more and more people, more infrastructure, more and more of their economy, which is going to take literally trillions of dollars to rebuild. And we haven't, as a country and as a NATO, as an organization, we have not said to the American people, this is our objective. It's to kick Russia out of Crimea and out of eastern Ukraine. Fine. Then say that. And then say, here's our plan. And implement it and do it. Because right now, we have hesitancy within NATO, and we've gone to the lowest common denominator. When in 81, we were told, let Russia keep SS-20s. They've deployed almost 1,800 of them. We can't get support from Europe unanimously to deploy Pershings and Glickums. And Reagan pounded the table and said, hell no. And against the advice of a lot of people, he went and deployed, and the Russians walked out of the arms control talks. Gorbachev decided to deploy even more SS-20s. And what did we get? We got 0-0, which we were told was a trick, that we knew the Russians would reject it, and therefore we proposed it so we didn't have to have arms control. When in fact it was exactly the opposite. We put on the table what we needed, which was we would not let Russia intimidate and try to break NATO apart by deploying SS-20s because he thought we could have division. Now, we had Thatcher, not Neil Kinnock. We had Mr. Cole, and not Gensler, and we had Pope John, and not a liberation theologian, and we had Reagan, not Carter. Now, I don't want to be partisan on this, but there's a big difference between that four triumvirate and what they accomplished miraculously with enormous Democratic help. House of Representatives was 250 some odd Democrats, 170 Republicans. Okay, I needed 54 Democrats to win a vote in the House, because I was going to lose some Republicans. And that was one of my jobs, to go count votes. Okay? And we couldn't be partisan on this issue. So NATO's problem, as I see it, is they haven't decided to win this war. And my friend Steve Blank is I think, answered very well. What happens if we win? My worry, and it still is Putin crazy and reckless enough to use nuclear weapons to try to forestall defeat? And the question is, I think before he loses, he will be removed from power, and the Russian security forces and the military will withdraw because they don't want to see a collapse of the Russian military.
So let me take a comment that you made. I'm going to pose a